So today I'm going to talk about attacking split, but unlike most of the time when I talk about kind of pro play or optimal play, today I'm going to talk about how to attack split in ranked games. Now, as most of you will know, for most ranks, the general strategies tend to be a lot of 5-man hits, a lot of fast rounds in general, maybe targeting like one specific area of the map that you're going to go and try and attack. That's generally what happens in a lot of ranked games. And so on a map like Split, where maybe the best option would be to run something like a 1-3-1 default every round and, slowly try and take mid and then, decide where you're going off the information you've got from that. That isn't going to happen in your ranked games, and I understand that. So instead, I thought I'd make this video to try and just keep that in mind of what most people do in ranked and try and just help you maybe nudge your teammates in the right directions to potentially have a bit more success. Now, Split as a map is difficult to attack even at the very highest levels, even with the most optimal play, right? So I'm not expecting this video to give you 100% attacking win rate on Split. That's just not going to happen because it's going to be difficult either way. But let's start off with a B main 5-man rush. This is going to be a very common rank strat, and this is, I think, where a lot of people get it wrong, is that this is probably the worst thing you can do on this map. For a lot of reasons, right? First off, we start off with this choke point. It's long, it's narrow, it's not easy to get out of, and once you do get out of it, you have to look left, you have to look right, you have to potentially look up at heaven and the rafters, you have to look at hell, you have to look here, coming straight ahead from your left, straight ahead from your right, and all of these are different elevations, they're different angles. It's very difficult to know where to place your crosshair. Whereas for the defenders, it's very easy. You can only come out of this very narrow gap here, so their crosshair is much more likely to be in a good place than yours is. And this is why even at the very highest level, if you try and do a full 5-man B main fast exec, even pro teams will commonly struggle to do that and actually manage to take the site. And so my advice for you is, if your teammates want to do some kind of B hit, maybe nudge them in the direction of going through heaven instead. Maybe if you're playing like a breach or an omen, you can be back here, right? And maybe send a flash or a stun in there and help them out. And then you'll come back to B main, because if you're watching this video, you're probably the smartest player on your team. And so, you can then come back to B main, wait for them to kind of take heaven. And as they're coming onto the site, you join in from B main as well. That's generally what I would suggest, because if you can take heaven as the attackers, and we did get helped out a bit here with the changes on Split, right? Like, you can't be up here as the defenders anymore. This little bin or whatever it was is gone. If you can come and take heaven, then what you can do is much more easily clear hell. You can clear all of this angle very easily as well. You can come down here, you can clear this part of the site, you can clear back there. You can clear a lot of the angles that are very problematic when coming from B main. It's going to be easier. Now, someone probably will die on their way in heaven here, right? Normally there's going to be some kind of fight to get into heaven. But if you can win that fight and actually get into heaven, then your chances of taking that B site are going to be much greater. You're also going to end up in a much better post plant, because now you own heaven as well, right? So that's just an extra space where you can probably see the spike or see the site, where, it's going to be a trouble for the defenders to try and retake through heaven now as well. And if you force them through this tiny choke point, you're probably going to be good either way, because this is a nightmare to retake from. So this is what I would generally say for this B site, is if you are going to go for a fast B play, try and push your teammates to go through heaven rather than through B main. But now let's come to the A site, and my general tip for the whole map in general is to go A more often than you go B. I think that A was already on the old Split a bit easier to go to rather than B, but with the changes, and a lot of the changes did come towards the A side of the map, I think that A got a lot easier than B. This kind of, to me, is reminiscent of Pearl, where, Pearl B main, and I'm sure you've experienced this in your ranked games as well, defending that B site on Pearl is really, really hard now, right? It's really, really hard. And so a lot of teams in ranked or pro play will just go B quite often, right? I think the same, maybe not quite to the same extent, but here on Split, I think that this A site is going to be a bit easier to attack in general than that B site is. First things first, the devs helped us on this initial angle to come and take A main by adding this, because defenders who are now standing there are going to have a more tricky time and are going to be pushed off or killed easier on this angle, because now their crosshair isn't going to be in the right place all of the time, because you can set up a high-low. So we can come and take this space a bit easier in towards A main, and then as we come to the site as well, you'll know obviously this changed here, where They can no longer be up high close on your left, they have to only be here. So again, that's going to be handy because obviously we can already see on the rafters here, and then we can just check down here as well. And I think in general this site is going to be a bit easier to take, and probably always was the case that it was just a bit easier to take overall. But there is a problem with just coming on and taking the A site and just planting the spike there. You might think that this is some great success, but actually this is going to lead to some problems, because if we don't have heaven control here on A, we potentially run into a big problem where the defenders can now retake from here, they can now retake from heaven, and potentially as well, they could come all the way down rafters here if you don't have any of this control, potentially flank around you and come back this way as well. And so if you're stuck on the site here and you've got, enemies coming from 1, 2, 3 different directions and different elevations as well, that's going to be very, very tricky to hold and know where you should be aiming and, which side are they coming from first. And this really is why taking a heaven control is important, because actually when we come and take a heaven, it's not helping as much as the B site is, right? We can probably come and clear this angle down here, right? We can clear this for our team, and maybe we can stop people over there as well. But in terms of people being, back towards elbow here or anywhere down there, kind of where the spike is or behind the screens, right? We can't actually really help without getting down there, so it's not quite the same as B Heaven in terms of effectiveness of actually taking the site, but what it does do is give you a much better post-plant scenario, where if your opponents now, let's say that this was an impenetrable wall that your opponents just could not get through, and they have to come round here, and they have to come through CT, and they have to retake through this, I mean, good luck getting through a narrow choke point here where you have to look close left, you have to look there, you have to look up, you have to look behind this box, you have to look there, you have to look there. 6 different angles to come out of a narrow choke point on, good luck, right? It's not going to happen. And forcing your team more than 2 people through here, they're just going to get absolutely destroyed. The post plant is going to be much better for you. But let's say that they do try and come and retake through heaven. Well, the problem is for them now, it's going to take a lot of time, right? And if that spike is ticking down, this is a lot to potentially clear for the defenders, right? You're talking about, little cheeky angles like that or something, or all the way down in vents is another one as well, right? You could just be hiding down here. Are they really going to take the time to come all the way down vents, clear you back there, come back up the rope and, come this way and then clear all of it? It's going to take them a long, long time. So either way, you're going to find, probably some success by taking heaven, making that retake a lot harder. But now let's talk about actually taking a heaven, because I think that this is the part of the map that actually did substantially change. We've already talked about this angle and how these defenders are going to get pushed off more easily down here, right? So they're going to get pushed off further back. But also now, because these stairs have changed, right? This was a massive, massive change where once you swung this angle as the attacker, it was basically impossible to know where your crosshair should actually be, because there was a million different possibilities for where these defenders could be. There was also the bin behind this box just here, where the defenders could stand on that as well. That's now gone as well. So we're looking at substantially less angles that these defenders could be in, and our crosshair can be in a much more reliable place when we actually swing this angle, making this much easier to take from rafters. And I think that this is true for vents as well. Vents is normally a place where you'll see, cipher trips, alarm bots of some sort as well, some kind of sentinel utility in here, because it's not often that people actually go through vents very often. But I do think that now it became a bit more possible. Yes, you do still have to go up a rope, and that's never really ideal, because either you're going to slowly go up and hope that kind of no one is there, your accuracy isn't going to be great, but once we actually get up the rope, right, we do still have to worry about the window. We have to worry about this angle here. This is a spammable wall, so if someone is sitting back here somewhere, and just kind of waiting for you to come out, then you can spam through this wall as you come through vents. But also, again, this change to the stairs means that we have a more, stable headshot angle. And again, they can't be up here behind this bin anymore if they were crouching, just behind this box. And so again, I think taking a heaven is going to be just easier than it was before, and I would be focusing more of your attention towards that. And so to conclude, your teammates aren't going to be doing 1-3-1 defaults on split probably in your ranked games. It's not really going to happen. But if they do want to go for some big push towards B, then I would recommend, if you can, saying oh yeah, let's go B, but let's go through heaven instead. And just try and, nudge them in that direction, as I think you'll find more success trying to get through heaven than you would trying to just push all the way through B main. And my general tip would be probably lean a bit more A, right? Go 60%, 65, 70% towards A rather than B, or at least make that your focus. You might not end up at A, right? You might end up rotating back towards B at the very end of the round, but maybe focus a bit more towards A, because I do think that whether you go through vents or whether you come up rafters or whatever it is, this A site is going to be just a bit friendlier to take. It's just going to be a bit nicer overall. The angles are going to be more in your favor than they were previously, and I think that, this A heaven part of the map got quite a bit harder to defend than it was previously, and so I think you should probably try and take advantage of that by making it a focal point of your attacks.